I personally am not obsessed with historical accuracy, but any music that I create on the viol will very much rest on the shoulders of people who were extremely obsessed with historical accuracy. You know, the sound that I'm informed by are sounds that people produced, you know, from like a lifetime of scholarship and research and investigation. I want to have an understanding of the context. I like the history. I like to be able to read all the notation, but we're living in the 21st century, man. What I gather is that the early music revival movement was met with a lot of resistance. You know, people thought it was a passing fad, that it would sort of go away. I think it's just people like Jordi Savall in the last 20, 30 years showing how beautiful these gut strings could sound. Especially like in a place like London, there's like such a high demand for continuo playing. In the States, in New York, you know, Juilliard just added an early music program, and there's concerts all over the place. Whenever there's anything like from before Bach, it's usually they want period instruments. So I think there's a market.
Supposing you were talking about performing a song that was performed in the Commedia dell'arte, or say from an English stage jig, the real spirit of it, the authentic spirit of it should be anarchic and wild and popular, and that's really more important than what your strings are made from, to have an authentic performance. Authenticity being an issue right from the start. The whole logic of playing on early instruments is that the music will sound better because it was conceived by composers to be played on certain instruments and in a certain type of acoustic. One senses a tension between people, those who care passionately about the exact authenticity of the instruments, who in a way perhaps regard early music as an exercise in auditory archaeology, and people who perhaps don't care so much about that, but what they care about is musicianship. I would come down the side of saying musicianship was more important. In the early 80s, when I started getting interested, there was this joke term being used, the authenticity police, who would come and arrest you if you played a 6-course music on an 8-course lute. Yes. Played music on a crumhorn, which was meant to be played on a shawl.
Well, like most lute players, I played the guitar, and I found that I was playing virtually nothing but lute music on my guitar. I remember sitting in an open lesson and seeing an amateur player like myself, but a rather more experienced one, come in, and he held the lute, and his hand was in the wrong position. I couldn't believe it. It was completely wrong. It was like this, and of course one played like that. And I thought, boy, when this guy's finished, the tutor's really going to sort him out. His hand position's all wrong. And I was astounded when the teacher started talking. Yeah, that's very good. I like that. And I'd never seen this thumb inside hand position before, and thought it was very, very strange. I of course rapidly changed my mind and realised that this technique was very appropriate for Renaissance music, early Renaissance music, and was a much easier and more musical technique, I think, than the thumb outside that I'd grown up with in the guitar. The way of playing the lute was so much more musical. And I hired a lute from the Lute Society, and I played for about 6 months, and then I went to the Lute Society summer school at Cheltenham in the summer of 1979. I had lessons with Nigel North, and I was absolutely besotted with it all. I thought it was completely wonderful, and I just fell in love with the whole business at that point.
The house was built in the late 1800s. It was originally the base of the rural music schools. It was taken over by Benslow Music Trust in the 80s. We're in association with the Lute Society on this event, and they provide us with such brilliant tutors.
Some people spend a lot of time in the garden, and I spend a lot of time messing around. I got really carried away with writing bastardo parts. So we just hear the lutes with no voices from the beginning. 3 and...
Yeah, it fills itself. It's a great weekend.
It's great to come along as a beginner. It made me feel really welcome. It was just a community of really lovely people who were keen to share their expertise and their love of the instrument. So being forced to sing madrigals in the bar late at night, on pain of being sat in the corner on my own looking. But it gets easier, sight singing from notation. Not something I expected to do when I came here. As the drink flowed and we got practiced at it. In this course I've been playing a 13-course Baroque lute. She was found in a friend's dad's attic when he died, and she was clearing his house out. Just looked in the attic as an afterthought, and this was it.
This is an 11-course D minor lute, it's a French lute.
So I'm playing about 6 years. The reason was the film Les Matins du Monde. I saw about 15 years ago. I liked to play violin because I play violin and it sounds so different. The violin sounds more relaxed. The boundary between amateur and professional, there is no boundary, I think. And if I live in violin, I would not have no chance to take a lesson from famous teacher. But this is also a drawback because the community is so small. When someone is giving a concert, there are not so many audience.
Bringing in new audiences is a big thing for us. In the past, from which we feature music, there wasn't this this is popular music, this is classical music divide. There was just music. BREMF has been going for more than 10 years now. I worked previously for the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment for a number of years, and so I was kind of involved with early music. And I guess, for me and maybe for a lot of our audience, there's a sense that, the closer you can get to the way the composer envisaged it, then, the more authentic and real it is. We really would like to bring in people who don't regularly go to classical music concerts. I think we have had some success with that, with particular events that we've put on. We did something last year called Early Music Club Night, which was in St Bartholomew's Church. People could sit on the floor and sort of wander around, and we had performers performing from different parts of the church. I think there's also a general sense with early music that it's becoming more kind of mainstream in the last 10 years or so, and I think that maybe allows us to do more interesting things. When I first worked for OAE in '97, there was very much a sense that there were some arguments that we were needing to have, and there were certain critics who just absolutely hated the way that the orchestra played, and there were some arguments that we were having then which sort of don't seem to be necessary now. I certainly think Simon Rattle working with the orchestra was a big moment, and also the orchestra coming to Glyndebourne and playing for two of the operas there was a sort of seminal moment in it being accepted that this way of doing things was not sort of some kind of sort of wacky subset, but was, something for mainstream venues, mainstream conductors, people who were involved with excellent music making. We're working with young early musicians who are, 21, 22. They don't see it as a revival because, they have always grown up, I guess, with this being a sort of accepted part of classical music.
Rick got annoyed when Sting started doing lute music.
Yeah, so I decided to do Sting songs.
Yeah, that's right. You did Sting songs on the lute. Yeah.
Roxanne, yeah.
I've always rather liked lute music, and I could never quite believe really that Henry VIII did write. What was he meant to have written?
Greensleeves.
Yeah, I bet he did, didn't he? What's an Orphereum?